Good day, creative people. This is Shelly Dax, your host for the Tattoo Sisterhood Revolution. Today, I'm excited to be chatting with tattoo artist and painter Anali Delaney. But before we do that, let's go over really quickly what we're doing here. In this free interview series, I'm speaking with some amazing tattooers about the beginning of their career, what kinds of stumbling blocks they've dealt with in this industry, and how they've built their clientele or following and grown as an artist, with a special emphasis on being a woman in a field which has traditionally been dominated by men. And when you take in all these sessions, you'll walk away with tips on breaking into the industry, staying grounded, and being an artist who doesn't compromise your values. I would encourage you to listen to all of these sessions, as there's a ton of free guidance, and who knows, something you hear could change the direction of your career. Watch for the interview of the day in your email every morning. And now let me tell you about Anali. Since starting in the Bronx, New York, back in 2011, Anali has made a name for herself in countries all over the world. When starting out, all she ever wanted was to have a job of creating art without the burden of student debt or restrictions of freedom. Now she has a career not only creating art for a living, but with the freedom to live a life completely on her own terms in the best industry in the world. Hello and welcome, Anali.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You call it the best industry in the world. Why do you say that?
I guess because I can't seem to think of any other job that gives as much as the tattoo industry does.
Oh, that's really great. So tell all of us a little bit about how you first became interested in tattooing and like how many years ago was that and where were you when that started?
My dad is an artist. He's a painter, sculptor. So I've always been doing art. It's always something that I was going to do as a career. I never really considered tattooing until I was a teenager, probably, maybe 13, 14, when I started getting tattoos with fake IDs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I wanted to be an interior designer or a fashion designer, but I didn't want to have to go to a school or have that type of like structure of, going into an office and having a boss and, dealing with that type of environment. That was definitely not for me. And once I started getting tattooed and saw the environment of how tattooers are able to live, I knew that would be, way less money, but it would be a better life.
Oh, wow. Really? Way less money? Has that turned out to be true?
Well, when I started tattooing, you couldn't hope for more than being able to just put food on your table. There was nothing glamorous about it.
How long ago was that?
About 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. But it's transformed now, I would assume.
Yeah. Aside from the Corona situation, it's like, it was, it just turned out to be a lot more posh than I ever thought it would be, and never thought it would let me travel the world or, make a good living. That was definitely never something I thought I would get out of it. I simply wanted to be able to like have a free life. There was really no money in it before. That was just a like surprise benefit that happened over the time.
So tell me a little bit about the travel that you've done and how that's affected your career.
The traveling part of my career is like my favorite part. It's the very important part to me. I've met some of my most favorite people ever from being, a traveling tattooer, and all the different countries I visit and cities, and that just show me that all tattooers are kind of kindred spirits in that way, where it just automatically get along super well. I've never done a guest spot where I didn't feel, very welcomed, and just had like a, good relationship with the people I worked with. And, that's always the best. Having friends all over the world is like a really cool feeling.
Yeah, that's really neat. When did you start traveling for conventions and specifically with tattooing?
So I mostly travel for guest spots. I do conventions as well,
Guest spots,
but
yeah.
I usually do them with like if I do a convention, I'll do it with that shop that I'm guesting with. I just prefer like being like, you know, I started traveling probably like 4 years ago. So I was like, you know, 23, and I was a little nervous, I guess, to like travel alone all that time and just show up to a convention versus going to a shop where I would have people that were like taking care of me and making sure I was like safe and like knew where I should stay and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great. So how many, just name a few of the countries you visited and how many total you think you visited?
man, I don't know the total number. I don't think I started off with the plan of going to a different country every time that I traveled, and instead I ended up repeating the same countries many times because I made such good friends there, and then I ended up just like going to those places on repeat instead of like venturing out to new places. So I started in Germany. That was my first international guest spot at Smile and Demons. And then it kind of spiraled from there. I think once you start being known, especially as an American traveling tattooer, you start getting requests from other shops, seeing that you're, you know, someone who's willing to travel. So then it spiraled to, you know, Denmark, France, Italy, Greece,
Gosh, nice.
New Zealand, Canada.
Oh, how fun. So you've actually seen you've seen other shops as well as other people. And do you know a little bit about how like regulated things are in other countries, or, you know, kind of how people learn in those countries?
Yeah, it's definitely different in certain areas. Definitely have different procedures. I know a lot of countries in Europe, France and Germany, in particular, that I know of, they have super strict regulations on their inks, and like some of their other products. Mostly their ink restrictions are what kind of jump out at me the most, because I'm sure you've heard before that European ink is not as good as American ink. And that's because they're regulated. Their formulas have to be different. Same, like kind of the reverse way how wine in Italy is better than wine in the US, because we have to like filter all kinds of crap into it to make it, you know, sellable in America. They have the reverse problem with like tattooing.
That's really interesting. I've learned so much about tattoo ink in this last couple months. There's one of the other speakers named Hannah Wolf. She's got a book out called The Science of Tattooing that's brand new. And it talks, awesome. And she's actually worked with some doctors and scientists and stuff. And so she's really talking and elevating like the understanding for our industry of what's in the ink and what happens during healing and all that. So hopefully it'll get, you know, we'll become more educated in America as well, for sure. So have you ever apprenticed someone?
No, I have a belief that I needed to be at least 10 years into tattooing before I took an apprentice.
Okay. So you may at some point in the future.
Yeah, I just, you know, I really also believe that I would need the time, like to properly, you know, be able to give them my time. And I haven't had that. I mean, I'm traveling like every single month for years. Like there's no way I could give anyone that type of attention.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
So even though I'm 10 years in now, it probably like, you know, depends on how the traveling schedule goes, you know, continues from now.
So when you first started then, what kind of training did you receive?
I did one apprenticeship and 2 working apprenticeships. So the first one was in the Bronx, and that's where I learned, you know, the basics, building machines, soldering needles, breaking stations down, setting them up, you know, the different variations of tools, and, you know, kind of like back then also, you know, the ultrasonic and the autoclaves and all that type of stuff that we had back then. And then after that, I went to another working apprenticeship in Connecticut. And that's where I was more so refining like how to tattoo. Like clients would pay me, but just, you know, just a little tiny bit of money that the shop took. So it was just more like, you know, to get get moving, because the only way you really learn to tattoo is to tattoo at the end of the
Right.
day. That's the only way you really learn. There's no other substance that's similar enough to what it's like to tattoo a person. So and then I went from there to San Diego, and I did another working apprenticeship here for a few months, and then it turned into like a job. So it was just more, the working apprenticeship in San Diego was more so as like a trial situation, because I was still so new. They didn't want to like sick me on the clients yet.
Mm-hmm,
So I was
mm-hmm.
like, just kind of proving myself for a little bit. And then it just turned into like the regular job.
Yeah, I know that you talked before about the willingness to accept criticism, and how was that for you during your time of learning?
I needed it. When I
You
went
said
into
something about being shy when you were like first starting
yeah.
out.
Yeah, I mean, it's tattooing has completely shaped like my personality, like who I am as a person, especially because when I started my first apprenticeship, I was 18. So I was still kind of forming who I am. And my whole life up until then, I was super shy and introverted, and I had a hard time speaking to strangers or people I didn't know that well. And, my first day at my apprenticeship, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Fordham Road in the Bronx, but it's one of the highest foot traffic areas in New York. So you're talking about like thousands of people walking, on the street. And my job was to stand outside of the building and hand out flyers and convince those passerbys to go upstairs and get tattooed by the tattooers.
Wow, I'll tell you, that'll get you over your shyness pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, considering that road has a tattoo shop every other storefront. So, who am I to try and sell something? I never sold anything in my life. And I am super afraid of talking to strangers. And, they made me do that for weeks, and talking to clients and setting up and breaking down. You do have to chit chat with the clients here and there, and you don't even know anything. So you basically have to pretend like you have any idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, learning about client services. Yeah, that's really important. So was your family supportive of you when you first started?
Yeah, my family I'm very, very close to my parents. And so they're like super supportive of like whatever I was going to do.
Lucky.
They didn't love the first couple of, first probably 4 or 5 years. I was, super broke and on the brink of homelessness many times. They didn't love that part. I was encouraged to get a real job.
Oh, yes.
But that doesn't mean they didn't support whatever I did anyways,
Yeah, that's good to know though. What was your biggest stumbling block, through this process when you were maybe 4 or 5 years in?
I mean, I don't know if there's like any one particular instance that I can kind of pinpoint or anything like that. All those years were struggles. It was a struggle mostly in the process, like learning how to tattoo, trying to tattoo people and pretend like you have any idea what you're doing, and then you take a break and like cry in the bathroom and like sweat through your clothes because you don't know if you're doing a shit job or not, or like, anything like that. So, I mean, those obviously years were very stressful in that way. And then on top of that, I had to be available for my apprenticeship like a full-time job, but also work nights, because how else would I pay my bills? So, just running on coffee and Red Bull and very little food for a few years, was like all those kind of things were hard, but they were worth it. So
yeah, you said this is not a job for everyone. What does that mean to you?
I definitely believe that's true. Because I've encouraged, certain friends and people over the years to, that I felt were creative in their way to get into the industry, not always in tattooing, but, in other like permanent makeup and, piercing and stuff like that. Like, I've had friends kind of be drawn to what I do and want to be a part of the industry, coming to conventions with me, seeing the camaraderie and things like that. And then it turns out that I've seen it happen one too many times where they start to, get into it, and they realize that like they break under the pressure of dealing with clients, of not even necessarily the procedure that they're doing itself, but more so how they deal with people, with the clients, with all of that kind of stuff is really more difficult, I would say, than the procedure itself.
Yeah.
You have to be a strong person. You can't be timid and soft, really, because they'll walk all over you, and in the end you'll ruin your own career, kind of saying yes to everything the client says instead of standing your ground and being the professional in the situation and
Oh, yeah.
telling them, this is like, I'm not going to put my name on something that I don't believe is going to be the best thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And being able to stand up for yourself and your own values, that's really important as well, for sure. So what's what's a few important things you would tell people who are beginners and just getting into the industry right now and they're hoping to like make a career? What's a few of the most important things you would tell them?
Honestly, I think like I'm glad to like have a space to say it, because like I really think it should be like someone needs to tell like beginners or people that want to get in how to do it, where they could actually succeed in receiving an apprenticeship. Because I get like a lot of like DMs on Instagram, or like the occasional email, but mostly DMs, of like, oh, like I'm looking for an apprenticeship, or my sister's looking for an apprenticeship, or something like that. And to be honest, like that's the absolute wrong way to do it. Never send someone a DM. That is the worst possible way. Like, the person has zero respect for you for doing that. Mostly because any tattooer you're asking to learn from, they had to do what all of us, that all the people I know that started when I did, had to do, which is basically hang around the shop every day for months, essentially begging to learn the knowledge that they learned over their career. And they also did the same thing when they wanted to learn, So it's like knowing that you need to show that you really want this, because at the end of the day, you have to give up your whole life. You can't do it as a hobby. It's not like something you like do on the weekends for extra cash. If you want to be any good at being a tattooer, you put your whole life into it. So the first sign that they're going to see of you being willing to do that is to try everything you can to learn what they've learned.
So you're talking about pretty much kind of the apprenticeship style that's set up in certain areas, but it's not that way. I mean, and you know, even more than I, since you've traveled more than I have, that it's not set up that way everywhere. That it's, but if someone is wanting an apprenticeship in the traditional style, then yes, I think what you're saying is dedication and determination will get you miles if you're really serious about this career. Yeah, for sure. Because, but I've talked to a lot of really awesome people who haven't been able to necessarily get in a traditional apprenticeship, or maybe they even live in an area where it's not required. But still, even with that, it's the dedication. It's showing, like you say, showing your portfolio, even if you're just practicing on fake skin and grapefruits and things like that before you actually get to real skin. Yeah, all of those kinds of things take such determination and talent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you think is the main thing that propelled your tattoo skills forward the most?
I mean, because I did those, apprenticeships that, I guess if you want to call it like the like kind of original style or whatnot, those are what helped me grow very fast, because they're no shit. They're gonna tell you exactly what's wrong with everything that you do, and you take that and you learn from it. So I've had the opportunity to get the criticism that I needed, especially because I was an artist before. So I had a certain way that I did things, and drawing and painting is not the same as tattooing. So I essentially needed to completely relearn a lot of things. So those critiques really helped. And also going from shop to shop instead of doing one very long apprenticeship at one shop, I did basically 3 apprenticeships. And so learning from different people
Mm-hmm.
early on was also, for me, it was helpful. I don't know if that's, necessarily the same for everyone, but like I benefited from having different people teaching me their versions. Everybody tattoos a
Mm-hmm.
different way.
Yeah,
So that was really helpful.
I'm sure that guest spotting at all those different shops around the world probably helped a lot as well, because you got to see
Oh,
so
definitely.
many different people tattooing.
Yeah, definitely.
Why do you think why do you think your clients choose to work with you?
Um, I would assume they just liked my Instagram profile. I mean, these days, like it's not like they know anything about like how I, am or how I deal with clients necessarily. Like they don't know me. A lot of my clients travel to me from different places. So they don't necessarily know anything about like my procedure. They just liked my work, I guess, which is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But like return clients and stuff, that would just be, I would assume, the way that I treat my clients and the way I set up my shops to make them feel very like at home and safe and stuff like that. I'm sure probably helps get me a lot of return clients. I have a lot of clients that are just very loyal and, stick with me for years. They'll start a project, finish it, and start a new one. So,
Oh, that's great.
those people are awesome. They're just big part of my life.
Yeah, building the loyal clientele, that's tough, but once you get to that point, it's so nice. Can you give people a tip, some tips on actually building the clientele?
I mean, personally, I built my clientele in a walk-in shop.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I've ever known how to build clienteles. When I was first starting out, like I worked at walk-in shops, so you have to be a salesman. So when you get that walk-in, it might be something small and simple, maybe something you don't necessarily want to do or anything like that, but you do it, and while you're doing that, you turn that client into someone who wants something bigger from you or a project, and
Yeah.
you flip them into someone who's going to continue coming to you, find whatever way possible to set yourself apart from the rest of the tattooers around you. And that's the only way I've ever been able to do that in the beginning. And then
Sure.
later in my career, it was more so you just do an excellent job and they basically keep coming back because it's
Uh-huh.
so good.
And so
Um,
even in this walk-ins and that kind of thing, did you actually did you give them a business card? Did you say, follow me on social media, or how did you get them to like continue
oh yeah,
to
back then
follow
we
you?
didn't we didn't have, I mean, I didn't use social media back then. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just, more so the experience that you give the client, like being really thorough, making sure they feel like they've gotten all of their information, that you seem like you really know everything, even though you don't. You just pretend you do. And
Right.
just the being super professional, like this the little things, like making sure they're really comfortable, like they've got like a wrapped pillow, and
Yeah.
they took their shoes off, and just little things, do you want some water, like it just being more empathetic towards their situation and knowing that they're in pain, so trying to
Right.
be as accommodating as possible. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do that, and clients really
No,
care
you're
about
right.
that stuff.
Yeah, and I do think that makes you stand out more. I'm surprised at how many of the people I've been talking to are talking more about the client experience and how important it is to make that, something really great and compassionate, and just a nice, comfortable place for people to be makes a huge difference. Even if your art is a butterfly or a heart or something,
Mhm.
something simple, you have to remember that that might be their very first tattoo, and that means something to them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So can you share what you've noticed about women and minorities getting into the tattoo industry?
I mean, in my experience, when I was first, I think I was maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years in, I I definitely got turned down many times for being a female, just like they wouldn't look at my portfolio at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because, there was like a kind of rule at some point that they didn't hire female tattooers in all male shops because they didn't want to, have any type of like drama ensue should there be like a relationship between two of the artists or something like that, which was ridiculous when I was applying because I was like 20 and
Uh-huh.
everybody in there was like 40. But I never really took any of that stuff to heart because at the end of the day, that just like anytime someone tells me no, I just push like a million times harder.
Oh,
So
boo boo, girl. That's
it was
funny.
just fuel for the fire, really. Like I
Yeah.
lived people to tell me that I couldn't do something. So I took it more as a positive, even though it was an obvious negative, but I just took it more as like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna go out there and somehow get better at tattooing than all of you and then throw it in your face. Like that was basically like my attitude was. I was also 20, so it was like very angsty.
Okay. Yeah.
But that was like that. I took that as like kind of a fuel thing. And then I've had all kinds of different tattooers work in my shops, especially because we're like a guest artist shop and so we have people coming from all over the world. So really completely different nationalities, like men, women, like we're mostly a female shop, like our residents, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really just by chance. It's not on purpose or anything. Our resident guest artists are mostly male, but our like residents are all females. But
Mm-hmm.
it never caused any problems. We've had all different kinds of people work here. It's never been an issue. But I have heard stories from different people that have worked here that's not always the case. Sometimes they do have work environments where like a gay man is like not welcome or doesn't feel welcome in a shop full of straight men because they have like
Right.
a weird attitude about it or something like that. And obviously I'm always like open door policy for any type of artist as long
Mm-hmm.
as they're quality work and they treat their clients with respect. Like that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
But I have heard stories from them where there's been certain issues, but at the end of the day, like same as when people mistreated me or dismiss me for being female, you just leave and you find somewhere that doesn't do that. I mean, I've never really seen that as like what am I going to do now? Like, especially now, like there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tattoo studios. It's not like you can't just go like somewhere else. I've lived in
Mm-hmm.
super small towns where there's only 3 shops, but one of the 3 will be good enough, like
Yeah.
there's always somewhere else you can go. And I've never been a person that is like willing to accept that. Like, so if there isn't anywhere in my town, I will get up and move to another town, because if you really want to be a tattooer, you do what you have to make that happen, where you're safe.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do you think beginners, well, you said that when you started out, you didn't make a lot of money, much money, you had to have a second job and all of that. So how do you think beginners, once they're really getting going a couple of years, can shift into receiving more money for their artwork?
I think that fully depends on the quality of work they're producing, because everybody works at a different pace. Some people are prodigies that get super good super fast, and other people need to put those 10,000 hours in, and they get better at a slower rate. And that's kind of like, I mean, for me, like what you charge is based on your quality of work. So if your quality of work is, good enough, then you just kind of like move forward. You're in charge of your own, your own income. So you give yourself a raise. If you feel like you're doing a really good job, clients are super receptive, you're getting more and more inquiries, the more like full your email inbox is, the more you can kind of like push forward a little bit.
Yeah, nice. Where
So
you live, you're in California, and I heard that they just changed the laws from like it's not an independent contractor anymore, or there's some new
yeah, they
definition.
passed it's like called the AB5 law, I think it's called. And yeah, they basically demolished the ability to be an independent contractor, which I don't know how that's possible. But yeah, so you have the option to either be an employee, which is horrible to be an employee in this state, the taxes they take from you,
Mm-hmm.
or you form your own entity, so like a sole proprietorship or LLC, something like that, which
Mm-hmm.
they only did that because in California, if you're a business, they punish you with all kinds of, you know, flat rate taxes that you pay to the state just for existing. So
Yikes.
um, it's really the worst. Don't be a tattooer in California. Go somewhere else. It's terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's the
Everybody
worst.
move. No,
Yeah.
actually being a sole proprietor, there's not that much paperwork involved in that. It's pretty simple to do it. It's just a matter of, like you say, the taxes
Oh
are
yeah, no,
more
it's easy to
challenging.
do. Even an LLC is like, so you could do it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. That's super easy. Honestly, I would do that kind of almost anyway, just to be safe, and it's easier to do your taxes that way and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But it's just in this state, it's
Yeah.
a disaster just because of the stuff they make you pay just to have those things. So
Yeah. Do you
it's
think it'll
it's
end
annoying.
up being more like tattoo collectives, kind of, where everybody's their own little business working together instead of working for someone or something?
Yeah, I mean, that's what my shops are. My shops have always been like that, even before those laws, because it's just, it makes more sense for
Describe
everyone.
what, yeah, describe what that is for the people who might not know.
So like I'm, running private studio shops, so they're not walk-in friendly. Like they're in secure buildings, and
Hmm.
there's no way to just walk in. So everybody in the shop is working off of their own client base. So instead of taking a percentage of the tattooer's money, I just charge rent for the
Hmm.
month.
Nice.
Or for my artists who, if they're traveling or, something like that, they can also pay by the day or by the week. So that way that's super, super flexible to whatever their life is. Especially because I was always very like, sometimes I would take off and travel for 3 weeks. And then if I had to pay booth rent, then I'm paying for time I'm not even there,
Right.
which
That
I
makes
always
sense.
thought was a little bit unfair. I understand why people have to do it because, they're taking up a station in their shop. So regardless, that owner does still have to pay rent. So I fully get why people do that. And it does make sense. Just in my situation, I don't get shops I can't pay for on my own. So anyone who's working here is just paying for their own space,
Right.
when they're using it. When they're
Mhm.
not using it, I'm not going to, kind of charge them for that. So when you have your own client base and you don't rely on the shop to, spend money on promotions and advertisements and all that stuff to get people to walk through the door so that you can make money, um, you can just pay like a rent, and that would it just be easier for
Mhm.
everyone.
And so do
Um,
the individual artists do their own promotions and marketing to their clients? How do they
Yeah,
do that?
like
Yeah.
we do it too, like, but organically. We don't like pay
Mhm.
for promotions for anyone, not even for me. Like we just organically do posting and stuff on social media, so that everyone's like work is being shown all the time. We just don't like boost them or pay for weeks at a time or anything.
Mhm.
Like we don't buy like business cards. It's a huge waste of money anyways. Um
Is that
and like
because your artists are already established?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
when
like, there's
someone's
really
first starting out, they may have to do a little bit more of that networking and promoting and all of that just to get going and just start to build the clientele, right?
yeah, I mean, personally, I have never seen business cards work. I used to
Oh,
stand
yeah.
Yeah, like when I used to like be like 19, 20, I used to like stand outside of the bars and like, cause I couldn't go in, and like hand out cards, like talk to people and spend like hours like letting people tell me all of their ideas for what they want and blah, blah, blah. And I would hand out cards, and I could tell you I probably handed out 1,000, 1,500 cards and never once got an appointment off of them.
Oh,
Like
wow.
they're just not, it's not an effective way. And especially now with social media, you just give them your handle, you watch them follow you on Instagram or whatever platform you use, and that's going to be way better because they'll see you later. A business card is going to go in a pocket and get washed or get thrown out by accident or end up at the bottom of their car, and they'll never think about it again. But if you get them to watch you on social media, you're going to pop up eventually, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that person, I totally forgot about that. Like a business card's not going to get you there.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's
so,
really interesting how much it's changed. I've been tattooing for over 14 years. And so, yes, I used to use business cards way back in the old days. And some of them actually did come back. But I am amazed at how much social media has transformed our industry.
yeah, it's way more effective.
Yeah.
Like, way more.
It's incredible. Yeah, that's really cool. So what kind of tattoo equipment and inks are you using now, and why did you make that choice?
I use a Bishop rotary machine. It's just a tried and true machine. It was my first ever rotary machine when I switched from coils, and it's old reliable. It just never, they've built them the same way for 10 years, and it's just like, it's a solid, good machine, like can rely on it. And then I use Radiant inks. They're a great company. I used Eternal my entire career. I never wavered. And at some point I had an artist here, one of my guest artists that got a sponsorship from them, and he left me a bunch of inks he couldn't take back to Italy with him. It was just like too much luggage. They were like really big bottles. So he left them here, and I was like, out of a couple of colors the one day. So I was like, I'll try these out, and I ended up just like really liking them, and started, using more varieties of their inks, and, saw how they were healing. And as I saw them healing well, I was like, cool, I'm going to just switch over to them. So yeah.
Where is Radiant Inks based?
California.
Oh, is somebody that you know?
I'm sponsored by them too now. Yeah, it's a California based American company.
Nice.
So it's
made in America.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I've met them at conventions a few times. They're super nice people. They're just very responsive, and very like a lot of the times, a lot of equipment companies now, it's like they're so big that there's really like not a lot of good customer service. You can't get questions answered, things like that. So I really appreciate companies that actually are still like really part of the industry. You can meet the owners like in person and like chat with them, and like, that they're people and not just like a company, like a big scary company that you can't get an answer out of,
Yeah, that's good. That's really helpful, especially when you know them. Yeah, nice. Well, I'm going to ask you just like maybe 2 more questions. What are you most excited about now?
Like for like career wise?
Yeah, like in the industry, how it's changing, anything in the future, what you're planning on doing artistically.
I don't know, man. Like there were a lot of things in progress before Corona. I had my hand in a few other industries, and there were a lot of big plans that just got crushed. So it sort of put a lot of things in perspective, and like made me want to go back to before I owned studios, and just when I was just a nomad tattooer. Like I was just a tattooer with my equipment and my suitcase, and I just went around and like enjoyed my life with the freedom, instead of having the anchor of a studio where I have to pay rent every month, artists that I have to take care of and stuff like that. And I just it showed me a lot of things I didn't know I needed, so I would be more excited to just be focusing on tattooing again and not anything else. Like I just split my time so much in the last couple of years on projects that now may never come into fruition. So I realized that like I would rather just focus on, you know, turning my current style into a new style, like just go into a new style of tattooing that I haven't done before and try to get super good at it. And that's pretty much it.
Nice. Very cool. So what is one unique or strange thing people would never guess about you?
Oh man, questions like this always get me. I never know what to say. I feel
You
like I
weren't
always
ready
say the
for
wrong
that
thing.
one.
I really wasn't.
Just
Damn
something.
Damn it, Shelly.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just anything, just something. Okay, if it's not about the tattoo industry, just something about you. You know what I was gonna say? I love the photograph of your gorgeous hair.
Oh yeah.
So
Shout out by Christina Marie. She does my hair. She's awesome.
It's so awesome looking. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
is it still purple?
No, I actually got it done yesterday and it's like kind of like grayish brown. I like went back to naturals after 15 years yesterday because I was just bored and decided to go somewhere totally different direction. Yeah, I mean, nice. other than tattooing, like this is really like pretty much my whole life. Like I'm like, I do love adrenaline sports. That's like
nice.
Something when I travel around. I don't do it at all when I'm home, but whenever I travel, I always try to do like the scariest thing that place has to offer.
Oh, nice. Well, tell me at least about one of those, what that was like. Your favorite.
I think the most recent one was the tallest swing in the world in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
They like drop you from like a hanging bridge in between two mountains that like, I think you fall like 70 stories or something like that.
Oh, sounds horrible. No, I'm just afraid of heights, but it does sound exhilarating for sure.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It sounds like you're having some amazing adventures throughout the world. I love that. So for our listeners who want to stay in touch with you, and you have a little free gift to give, you want to share what that is?
Oh yeah. So on my my shop's store, which is blackriversd.com, in the store section, there are a couple of like line drawings that are meant to be like coloring book pages.
Oh, nice.
They're super good for like if you want to like de-stress, like just having something to like color in. You can't imagine how like good that is for if you're having a stressful day. So I just I posted, I think there's 3 or 4 of them. And then there's a sheet that has them all a little bit smaller. So they kind of look like a flash sheet. So yeah, that's awesome. That'll be available.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Anali. For our listeners, just look for the speaker's information on the event page. You can click next to it to get to the link for the free gift. Great. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To our listeners, your next interview will be delivered to your inbox. And don't forget, you have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released to listen. I look forward to joining you in our next session. Until then, be feisty, stay kind, and get creative.